Warning: the following episode of That Mental Ginger Show contains strong language and adult themes.
Alright, troops.
Hello and welcome to That Mental Ginger Show with your host Andrew Durning, aka The Mental Ginger. Well, my faithful followers, I've secured another great guest, as always. But this one I've got a very special connection with because she's also a fellow ginger. She's also in the broadcasting game, except hers is actually, censored and watchdog approved, whereas mine is just ramble and let it go. She is the brilliant host of Sunny Govan Radio. It's Susan Sutton. Susan, how are you, my dear? It's great to see you.
It's great to see you, Andrew, again.
Yep. For those that don't know, I was actually on Susan's show, talking with Susan Sutton, and I felt bad afterwards. I felt like I kind of hijacked the show. After I listened to it, I'm like, I talk way too much. It's like, Eyes has not got anything on me, man. So officially, apologies for hijacking the show.
Oh, it's too late for apologies. It's already been aired.
Yeah. Well, at least the apology's there.
Well, you'll know yourself being a podcast host that if you have a guest on that does a lot of talking, you don't have to. And you just let people go with the flow. And the difference is that my show has to be censored because, it is Ofcom regulated, whereas yours doesn't. So that makes it all the more brilliant. Yep.
And that was something you were looking forward to, was coming on and just swearing. And I'm like, fire away. It's something that I enjoy. I'm okay with swearing. You want to swear? Now is your chance. You can just be like, get to.
I'm a good girl.
Yeah, well, we're going to find out. Because that's a good segue into the first question, because I like to ask my guests about their origin stories, because if there's one thing we all have in common, we all have an origins. So, Susan, in your own time, for my faithful followers, please tell us your origin story.
My origin story. Well, I was born in a cottage next to a farm in a remote part of Yorkshire. My dad delivered me.
Wow.
Yes. He was a big. I was a surprise. I was born a day early. I was actually born on my mum's birthday, and the postman had cycled up the dirt track and knocked on the door. Dad answered the door, and the postman said, "Oh, it seems like it's somebody's birthday." And he said, "More than you think, mate, and there's me just about to come into the world." Yeah. And all he saw was this sort of like ginger bloody mass with one eye shut, one eye open. And he thought, "Oh my God, what on earth have I just brought into the world?" And it was moi.
Oh, brilliant. It was the way you started it. You were just like, my origin is, well, I was born. And then you had a wee pause. I was like, that's going to be the shortest origin story ever. I was born. The end.
Well, they say you're born, you live, you die, and that's it.
Yep, but the bit in the middle is called life, and that's the fun part, apparently.
Well.
Yeah. So how long did you stay down? How long did you stay down in Yorkshire?
Well, because of my dad's job, we moved around a hell of a lot throughout my childhood. He was a hospital administrator. Wow. So, like I say, he got moved from place to place. So we sort of averaged about 2 years, 18 months to 2 years in each place where we lived. So I've lived all over the country, north, south, east, west. Wow. You name it, I've been there. Yeah. Oof. So that's why I have a quite nondescript accent. I'm a northerner by birth, and because my parents were from Yorkshire, I don't say bath and path and grass. And people often take the piss out of my accent. Well, not many, to be honest. A lot of people say I sound really posh, which I suppose to a lot of people, I do sound posh, but I ain't.
I know. It was just at the end there. You're like, it's like I'm not posh, and it was just like a Catherine Tate, Kathy Burke kind of ending to it. And I was just like, there we go, that's it. Because I remember saying about your accent on your show, and you were like, I ain't posh, and I'm like, back off. What? Okay. What? I'm in EastEnders now. What? She's about to go, get out of my show.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I do have a telephone voice. You
Mm,
know, one can speak like this if necessary,
yeah.
but half the time I just talk like this. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Everybody always has that kind of voice, though, don't they? Because I've got my more, I'm like, good afternoon. I'm on the phone. My name is Andrew. How can I help? And then when I'm around my mates, I'm like, fuck off. All right, man. But one thing that my wife did notice is that when I'm around more kind of working class Scots guys, she noticed that my voice changes. I remember we were coming back from her brother's because he stays down in Hull. We stopped off a Scots Corner and I got a phone call. And she just stood outside the car and I'm talking to the guy. And she comes in and she's just tattering and laughter. And I'm like, what's so funny? She's like, it's just the way your voice changed when you were on that phone call. Like you're speaking like you now, but then when you're on the phone, you're like, all right, mate, how you doing? Aye. I'm just on the way back to Scotland, man. You know what I mean? And I'm like, what? I didn't sound like that. And then I remember like hearing a voicemail, and I was like, that had been kept of when I was doing that. And I'm like, oh no, that is what I sound like. I think it is. It's just you change it depending on the people that you're around.
Yeah,
So
definitely. When I go down to Yorkshire, I don't have many family left now down in Yorkshire.
mm,
But I've noticed that as soon as I seem to hit Carlisle on the train, my accent starts to change. Now, I used to live in Cumbria,
aye,
so then I start getting a Cumbrian accent, and
mm,
then I get to Lancaster, and it changes again. And then once I hit Keighley or Skipton, then
yeah,
I'm start talking right proper Yorkshire, you know.
yeah.
It's just Bayek.
Yeah, I remember actually that the first year we went down, went to see Alison's brother, and I was absolutely bricking it because all I knew was our brother's a cop. I might not get out of Hull alive. And we checked into the Premier Inn, and I was like, so using my telephone voice, it's like, we've got a room for two for Durning. And he's like, sorry, mate, I can't understand what you're saying. And I was like, a room for two for Durning. So, sorry, could you repeat that again, please? So me being me, I was like, it's like the ginger temper. Sometimes it could just go. Well, so I just went. So how about speak like this then? You understand me now? Like I got reservation for turning it with two people, and I was like, calm the down. I was like, no, he started this. He's fucking gonna get sung. It's like I can understand him perfectly. I can do his accent. Like how come he can't understand mine? And he was like freaking out, and I was like, right, Andrew, right.
And then you didn't try and pay with Scottish money, did you?
Yeah, that's the next one that always gets me. That was why, like,
Me too.
that was why. See, when the independence referendum came around in 2014, and the whole thing was about, can we keep the pound? Can we keep the pound? Well, my whole stick around that was, you don't take our money anyway. So what is the point? Your point is redundant. Well, try a different argument. But that was the one they always stuck with. Like, oh, you won't be able to keep the pound. You don't take our money. You don't.
Yeah. Apparently everything's a forgery, you know. Oh, we can't take Scottish money because, you know, we've had too many forgeries. And I was like,
Mhm.
what? When you come, I said, you know, I often say to them, so do you ever come up to Scotland for a holiday? Yeah, we do. I said, do we turn around to you and say we can't take your fucking English notes? You know,
That's
and they're
because
like, whoa.
yeah, that's probably because like the old joke of the copper wire was invented with two Scotsmen fighting over a penny. But that's the infamous Billy Connolly joke, and I think that's just what it is. We're like, we'll just take any money. Like it's that Welsh money. Aye, we'll just take the Welsh money as well. But because they never say that, they never say about the Welsh money. It's always the Scottish money. I've noticed that. Well, and what
Yeah.
all I can say is to any Welsh fans who are listening, you're more than welcome in Scotland. We will take all of your money, preferably the more the merrier. Just bring all your money. Well, we're okay with that. So why did you make the jump over to the dark side of the force over up in Scotland?
Well, I first came up in 1980. Hold on. 1987. My ex-husband, he was in the army. We met when he was serving down in Kent, in Chatham. And then he got posted up to Glasgow. Actually, you better not put in.
Yeah, I'll need to actually do some editing now. Damn it! What?
That's all right. Just ignore it. Everybody knows it's there anyway.
Oh,
So
it does have an audio file. I'll get a wee bleep and just put it over the top. I've got new software now. I'll give me an excuse to use it, like a boy with a toy, just like. But
well, he got posted up here, and there was no like single soldier accommodation, so he was given an allowance to rent a property. So he said to me, "Look, you might as well come up with me." So I thought, yeah, why not? So I came up, and then he got told he was being posted to Germany, but had to go to Tidworth first. Wow. So he said to me, "Well, I want you to come to Germany with me, but if we're not married, then we have to pay for private accommodation, we have to pay for the flights and everything else." So basically it was a marriage of convenience. We got married in Martha Street Registry Office.
Yeah.
Then we went to Germany. We were there for 8 years, and I decided that I didn't want to be married to him anymore. I had a couple of kids at this point, and I thought, well, where can I go back to? Because of Dad moving around for his work, I didn't feel I was from any particular place. Yeah. So my best friend stayed up here. She stayed in Barhead. So I wrote to her and I said to her, "Look, I'm coming back. Can I come and stay with you for a while?" And she said the most beautiful thing. She said, "When you left, you took my confidence with you, and I want it back." Oh. So I was like, "Oh, it's so emotional."
Oh, that's right in the feels. Well, don't get wrong. You've gave me a little bit of the fear, because you were like, I was with him for 8 years. I'd had 2 kids, and then I decided that I didn't want to be with him anymore. I've now been married for 8.5 years, and I've got 2 kids. And I've been having regular nightmares that Alison will leave me. So yeah, this is getting too spooky, man.
Well, no. The difference between you and him is he was a drinker. You're not.
Oh no.
So
definitely not. I know how, but Alison's seen me drunk once, and that is the only time she will ever see me drunk, because it was me and my mate. We were celebrating, like 20 years being best pals, and he bought this bottle of whiskey, and we always have that kind of like that peer pressure culture, I think, when it comes to drink, where it's like, come on, take a drink, what's the matter with you? Oh, you pussy, take a drink. So I was getting the kind of that because I wasn't drinking that fast. I went, all right then, if you want it, fucking game on. Necked half a bottle of this stuff. And next thing you know, I'm hanging over the sink, feeling like I'm going to be sick, like crying my eyes out, because I'm like, Alison's family hates me. She's going to leave me when she sees me like this. My pal had to call on Alison. Was like, yeah, you need to try and calm your fiance down here. I was like, and I was pretty sure that I was going to be like kicked out at that point. But she was like, I never want to see you like that again. I was like, duly noted. I never want to be like that again. And then the last time I had a drink was our wedding. But because you're so high on adrenaline when it's your wedding, you don't feel the drink hitting you. So it never really bothered me with that one. But yeah, when you said like, it was the marriage of convenience, and how he'd phrased it to you, I just thought of one of the jokes that I'd heard ages ago, and it was a guy basically, before he popped the question to his missus, like he'd been working out the numbers of how much money they would save if they were married, like what benefits they would get and all that kind of stuff. And he basically used a spreadsheet of cost saving as a way to propose to her. And rightly so, she knocked him back. And I'm like, what? I'm like, fair enough. Where's the romance? The romance is not in Microsoft Excel. It's crazy.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's totally ridiculous. So you come back to Scotland. You come back to the rain and the rain, more rain. So what you said, you kind of felt you didn't really have like a place to kind of settle, or and so what was the next move for you? Because you're separated. Were the kids with you, or were they with their dad, or?
That was a difficult one, because the army made it very, very difficult for me. They do make it difficult for estranged wives, right. Because they're all supportive of the soldier, never mind the wives and the kids. So I came back to Scotland initially without the kids, because I didn't want to drag them around. I was offered somewhere in the middle of Catterick barracks, Now, having been an army wife for so long, I know how the wives of soldiers treat estranged wives. And I thought, there's no way I am putting my kids through something like that, because we all know, when I interviewed you about the bullying, we know how cruel kids can be.
Yeah.
They pick it up off the parents. So I thought, no. So it was supposed to be that once I got my own place, that the kids would come over, and I got my own place after about 2 months. Then he decided to be a prick. And he'd always said to me, whatever we do, we don't use the kids as weapons. And I said, absolutely not. And that's all he ever did. He was a soldier through and through, and he decided, no, this is my weapon. And that's what he did. So I had a battle for 5 years to try and get the kids to come and live with me. In the meantime, my daughter, who was the youngest, she was put into a military boarding school against my wishes. And then I found out that when she was home at weekends or during holidays, they were living in a little village near Southampton, Calshot, I think it was called. And he basically had his named stool at the bar. And I would ring up the house to speak to the kids, where's your dad? He's in the pub. Ring up another day at a different time, where's your dad? He's in the pub. So one day I actually called the police and I said, I want you to do a welfare check. My kids are on their own at home, and he's in the pub. So it just made it really, really difficult. My mum and I didn't have a good relationship. And when the custody case was going through the courts down in Southampton, she actually wrote a letter to the court, which the solicitor acting on my behalf, when I turned up at the court, she said, I think you should know this. She said, I've been given this letter. And my mum had written that I was an unfit mum. Now, like I say, my mum and I never got on. Yeah. And there was no reason for her to say I was an unfit mum. If I was an unfit mum, I'll be the first to put my hands up and say, because I am a very honest person.
Yeah.
And I said, if that letter is presented to the judge in the family court, what are my chances? She said, the way this is written, she said, you've got no chance. And I thought, I'm not putting my kids through this. So I said, just let him have the kids. So long as I can get access and everything else, just let him have the kids. Because I was unemployed at the time as well. My mental health was at an all-time low. That made it even lower. I mean, after that, I did actually try and sorry.
Take your time.
I did try and take my life a couple of times. Because it got really, really difficult.
If you're not comfortable sharing this, you don't need to, okay?
There's nothing I'm ashamed of. There's nothing that I'm saying that I think thousands of people, men and women, have gone through themselves. It took me years to come to terms with the fact that I have mental health issues, that I'm living with a mental illness. But I mean, I cry on my radio shows. I'm such an empath. And, if somebody's telling me a story, it gets to me and I will cry. And I have no shame in my tears, none at all.
Man, you shouldn't at all. The stuff that that I knew about you from when we talked on your show, the stuff that you've told me now, you just amaze me every single time that I speak to you. Honestly, just how strong you are. It's very true that women do have more balls than guys most of the time, and my heart breaks for you. It really does, even though it's been and you've dealt with it and you've had that stuff. My heart just bleeds for you. What Susan really does.
Well, as you know from when we spoke before, I've been through a lot in my life, especially since I came back to Glasgow the second time. But I mean, it did all start from when I was a child, and putting it out there. My male sibling, I don't call him the BROTHER word, but my male sibling sexually abused me from when I was like 10 years old. So from such a young age, and even before that, the stuff he was doing, and he turned my mum against me, which is why my mum and I didn't have such a good relationship. He was he was her blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy, and he could never do any wrong. And it wasn't until he did something in his later life that she had to involve the police. He did, because of what he did to her and to her solicitors. One of the things was he broke into her solicitor's computer. He's a vile waste of skin. So there was, I think it was 9 or 11 police forces throughout the whole of the UK were involved with him. And it was through them actually raiding his house and taking away all his computer equipment. He had a lot of it. That's how they discovered what he had done to me when I was a child. So the police force came up from Hartlepool, which is where we were living at the time, and they really were pushing to get him done for it. So I went through a lot with that, but the CPS actually came back and said, because at that time when it happened, the age of criminal responsibility was much higher than it is today, and I think it was missed by about 2 months. He was something like 2 months under that criminal age of responsibility. So yeah, I've been through a lot, you know, and I've just seem to always have made a bad choice with men. I've been single now for about 13 years by choice, because I don't want to put myself through these things anymore.
No wonder. What have you been through? The stuff that you've been through, it's, man, you don't know how to honestly, like, kind of respond to something like that. The only thing you can do is just, you know, listen and just break your heart hearing it. But
don't break your heart. You are not that person. You know,
Yeah.
nobody else is responsible for what happened to me. And for many years, I mean, I've been through counselling, and for many years, I blamed myself. Every time I put myself in this situation with relationships, I thought, I must be doing it to myself. This is all my fault. But after years of counselling and everything else, years of therapy, I've come to realise, no, it wasn't my fault.
No.
It was the abuser's fault. It's all their fault. It's not mine. I'm still a nice person.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm not a man hater for anybody that's watching or listening. I don't hate men. I know that there's somebody out there for everybody. And a psychic told me that there's 3 men that are in love with me. One of them apparently I know very well. I don't know who that is. And two sort of on the edge. Come and tell me. Come and tell me you love me. Look at me. What's not to love?
Yeah, exactly. And for those that are listening on audio, come on, check out the video. She's absolutely stunning. And she knows that I can say it because I'm not a threat. It's great.
Exactly.
Yeah, because there are times it could be like, you know, get the pepper spray out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think as someone who's went through like abusive relationships as well, what physical and mental, what I think that's the worst part is when you think it's all your fault. You think that everything like that has happened to you is happening to you because you're bad, you're evil, there's something that you've done wrong. Like in my case, it was like, oh, I was too, I ended up being anorexic because of it, because she kept calling me fat and saying that I was like too fat and stuff. Don't get me wrong, she looked like a fucking pig, like literally the embodiment of swine. Well, now that I'm over that kind of hurdle, but yeah, having someone that you think really loves you telling you, you know, you're fat, you're useless, you're this, you're that. Well, I was about 1.5 stone underweight. Didn't eat for about 3 weeks after we'd split up as well. So having all this stuff, what going on, what in your head, what you do feel like it's your fault. Even though when people are telling you it's not, it's her, or in your case it's him. But it never really kind of shifts until you get like the therapy to tell you, like, it wasn't your fault. And trust me, it definitely wasn't your fault, Susan. Like, you're an absolutely brilliant person. You're a beautiful soul, inside and out. And you just got you got to keep doing what you're doing, because you're fantastic, and I'm really glad that I've been able to get to know you over the last like kind of couple of months. So how did you? So how did you wind up working with Sunny Govan Radio?
Well, back in 2004, 2005, I did an HNC in acting and performance at Redheads College, which is now, I think it's West of Scotland College.
Yeah.
So I wanted to become an actress. It was since I was a kid, I wanted to be an actress. Then I passed the course with flying colours with merit, and I thought, this is it. You know, I'm going to go out in the big wide world. I'm going to make a name for myself. I was the oldest in the class, of course. But then
similarities to my one as well. I was older, a class as a mature student, and I was the same. Aced at top of the class, and it must be a ginger thing. Must be,
definitely, yeah. But my mental health took a real nosedive, and family stuff and everything else, and it was difficult. So I had to deal with all of that, and then I eventually got into acting. It must have been right about 2013, and I started getting some work. Getting paid work was very, very difficult.
Yeah.
So I was doing a lot of stuff for students and what have you, you know, always with the promise of, you'll get the film for your show reel, you know,
it's exposure.
We'll pay your expense. Yeah, oh yeah. We'll give you your lunch and expenses. Half the expenses I'm still waiting for. I'm still waiting for the majority of the films for my show reel.
You need to claim interest on that. Claiming the interest.
Oh God, yes.
But if the banks can do it, why can't we?
Yeah. Things like lunches were a packet of crisps and a few biscuits and a bottle of water if you were lucky. Otherwise, you had to go out and buy your own. We'll pay you back. Yeah, right. Eventually, I did start getting some paid work. I've worked with some really, really lovely people. I actually did a film with William Sampson back in August. Yeah. I got paid for that.
Oh, nice. That's brilliant.
I did. Yeah, and it was a good daily rate as well. Yeah, and the food was amazing. It was proper food. Proper food.
I've never been there yet, but I've paid a lot of people that want to do stuff for me. But that sounded dodgy, but I mean, like,
yeah, I haven't. You didn't ask for my bank details.
I didn't. It sounded a bit like a casting couch thing, where I was like, yeah, I paid people to do things for me. What? It was like, even when I do like shows like this, I always offer, even if it's just £1, like to say, look, I'll give you something so you can say this has been a paid gig, and you can put it on your acting CV, and what if you
spotlight?
Yeah, and if you want to put a copy of the video, let me know, and you can use it for showreels and things like that. And I remember saying this to someone recently, that I did that, and they were like, well, who taught you that? That's a really good idea. And I was like, no one. I came up with it myself, because I was sick of it getting done to me, where I wasn't getting any like paid work. I was just told it was exposure, and I didn't get obviously that much. And then I did extra work for a while, and they tell you that extra work doesn't count on an acting CV. And I'm like, it's paid work, and they're like, yeah, but it's extra work, it doesn't really count. And I'm like, where are all these wee subcontracts that you don't tell people about in this bloody industry? So anytime somebody worked, so when I did my very first theatre show, I paid all the women in it. I was like, I just want to give you something, gave them all £20 each. They all wanted to give me it back, and I'm like, no, this way you can put it on your CV, and just explain the reasons behind it. Obviously, the rates went down since then. It's like a quid or just whatever their going rate is. But you just, I don't like being screwed like that, so I would not like to do it to someone else. If they reject it or say, nah, that's fine. But after that, you can go, well, I offered.
Yep. Well, after a while, there was somebody in the industry. I won't mention their name as much as I would like to. I'm not going to name and shame, but anybody that knows me will know who I'm talking about. We were setting up the eyebrows going.
Yep, my eyebrow is starting to twitch majorly.
We were setting up a company, for a production company called Callie Rose Productions. So that's all I'm going to say. I made up that name. Sorry, I've got hair in my mouth. So we set this up, and we both co-produced a feature film that was made in Paisley. But then I started getting a funny feeling about her. There was something that wasn't quite right, and I couldn't put my finger on it. So I started to sort of like zone in a lot more, and I realised that she was deliberately misinterpreting things, giving misinformation, not being completely true with things that she was saying to me and to other people, and these were things that were easily disproved.
Wow.
And I thought, I don't want to be a part of this. So all of a sudden then she put up this post on New Year's Eve about where are we, 2020, must be about 2015 or something like that. And she put up this post on New Year's Eve, and although she didn't name me, it was really obvious it was about me. She said that I'd been
posts.
She said that I'd been making phone calls to her and sending her emails, threatening to beat her up and everything. And I thought, this is unbelievable. So all these other people who we were mutual friends with, I noticed that they were all siding with her. Not one person, not one, came to me and asked me for my side of things. So I thought, I'm not going to make a comment on her post or anything. I'm not going to belittle myself. So I left it a few days, and then I started putting some memes up on Facebook, saying, basically you should get it from the horse's mouth. There's two sides to every story, and even though it might take years, the truth will out. Well, after about 4 years, I started seeing things. Some of these same people who were against me and for her started messaging me saying, I'm really sorry. I took her side. I didn't know. And I thought, you know what? You're not even my friend. Go away. You couldn't take the time out. But anyway, as you know, the industry, as big as it may seem to an outsider, is actually really, really small. Throw enough mud and some of it sticks. So I didn't get any work for a long time. Again, my depression, my anxiety started going right down, and I felt worthless, and I would barely go out of the house. And then one day on Facebook, I saw, she and I used to have a radio show together. Again, I'm not mentioning any names. People can draw their own conclusions. But we used to have a radio show together. And I saw this Facebook post from Sunny Govan Radio that said they were offering courses, SVQ courses, or was it SQA, whichever, to become a radio producer.
I think it's the SVQs, because I did the SVQ, but it was business and admin. Well, that was how I got my kind of admin side. So yeah,
SVQ. So I applied. I managed to get an ITA to cover the cost. Did the course, passed it, and on the day that I passed, they offered me a 2-hour slot on the show, and I was like, okay, this is what I want to do.
Brilliant.
But what do I do? What am I going to have my show about? So I had to go away and think about that, and I thought the best thing to do a show on is what you know about, what you know firsthand. And that's how I came up with Talk Susan, and inviting people on to talk to me about conditions they're living with, illnesses, things that they've been through. So with a view for any of the listeners, they may be going through something similar or the same, and it enables them to find help and support from the various relevant bodies.
Yep. And as someone who has been on your show, it was really refreshing being on it. Because I'd only done I think I'd done 2 other podcasts at that point in time. I say at a point in time, still bloody 2, but anyway. but this was it was my second time properly going on like a radio show, and I was bricking it. I was like, I have no filter. What if I say something stupid? What if I do put my foot in it with something? What if I sound like my voice isn't broken yet and I still sound like a 14-year-old? Like all those things were running through my brain like constantly. And I like to kind of put on the front where I'm like, yeah, I'm all right. I've got my mental health issues, but I'm okay. Yeah, I'm dealing with it. But I'm still that wee crippled kid. It's like, love me. Well, and I think every performer is, but all those nerves, you just took them out straight away. Like you were just so approachable and welcoming. Even though it was over Zoom, it still felt like I was just sitting next to you and we were having a conversation. And that's the way it really should be. And it was weird being on the other side of the fence, not being the one that was doing the talking. So I think that's why I talked too much. But I think I did okay.
It was all right.
Yeah.
You did do really. It went well. And again, I think it must be the gingerness in us. And I think because we're so similar in sort of life experiences as well, the fact that we've both been bullied and abused and everything else, we have gelled. We really have gelled. And I find that with, I think, all bar maybe two guests that I've had on my shows, and I've been doing them now for just over 2 years. Wow. All bar about two, I have gelled with, and just got on great.
Yeah, well, and you mentioned obviously we spoke about like how we both kind of got bullied, like for wetting the mop on the top of the head, essentially. And I noticed that over the kind of course of like the two kind of separate generations that women with red hair actually got bullied less as time went on. Because when it got to my kind of generation, now as I said on your show, but I can say it in more like explicit detail, guys were basically like, I want to mount that. It's because it's like uncharted territory. There's so many blondes, there's so many brunettes, but a ginger. And that was the way that guys looked at it. So I always grew up with a slight resentment of redheaded women, because I'm like, how come you can get away with it? And yet we get our asses kicked on a bi-daily basis, which was essentially what happened to me. Like, break and lunch, I was getting my head kicked in for what I couldn't control, essentially. But it wasn't until, because I couldn't say this, tell a story on your podcast on your show back and tell it on my podcast now. It wasn't until I got out and I was in the working world and I was speaking to a guy, ironically the guy that I was talking about, I did all right, how you doing? So it was this guy I was talking to, and he was like, so Andy, you ever been with any red-headed women? And I was like, yeah, my first girlfriend was redhead, but I didn't know because she dyed her hair brown. It wasn't until, events proceeded, and I was like, oh, look at that. I killed the mood straight away. But I was like, oh, what about you? He's like, oh, I've got fear. I've got fear of redheaded women. I've got fear of them. And I was like, why did one abuse you? Like, did something bad happen? He was like, no, nothing like that. Nothing like that, mate. What happened was, she came back to mine, right? And we'd had a few drinks and events were kind of unfolding. And I didn't realize that the carpet matched the curtains. And when I looked down, I thought I'd actually set her on fire, and I freaked out. So since then, it's just it's like PTSD. I just can't do it. And I was like, oh my god! Like, I'd only known this guy for literally a month, and he's telling me this story, and I was like, why? And ever since then, it's like he's had like this pure like phobia of redheaded women, and I'm like, so I never that was like an eye opener for me, because I never realized guys thought like that about like redheaded women. And then when I spoke to you about obviously like you getting bullied and stuff like that, I was like, but I've had a real education here. It wasn't just the guys that got got the stick for it, so to speak. And it just,
it's like I said when you were on my show, that the amazing thing is I was bullied a lot, not as much as you, when I was at school, because of the colour of my hair, because I've got freckles and everything else.
Mm.
And then years and years later, when those female bullies, because there was male bullies as well, but the female bullies, they grow up, they become women, they go
Mm-hmm.
to the hairdressers, and they pay 50, 60, 70 quid to get their hair this colour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was like,
Duh.
and it was like what I told you on your show as well when I went to Spain, and it was the women just loved me. Well, because redheads were so uncommon over in the other countries, they'd be coming up and rubbing my head, and I'm like, I'm 6 and I can't do anything about this. This is a nightmare. Well, and then I just remember 16 years old, let's sitting. It was me, mum, my dad, my best mate. We're all over. We're just sitting having lunch, and the waitress comes over, and she's like, "Oh, I love your hair," and I was like, "Oh, thanks very much." She's like, what dye do you use? What? So I said, "Au natural." So, oh, is that a British brand? It means it's legit. It means it's legit.
I remember when my daughter and I went to Turkey, it was just she and I. Oh God, there's my poshness coming out again. She and I. Me and her.
It's just that you speak proper England.
I do. But we went to Turkey, and I was going through this period where, because even in adulthood, I still get picked on because of the colour of my hair, and I was going through another bad mental health phase, and I cut my hair really short. I mean, boy short, and I dyed it bright pink, the brightest pink ever.
Wow.
So me and her, she and I were walking around the beach or the water park, and these Turkish guys were shouting out, "Oi, ginger!" I didn't think they were talking to me, but it's because my hair was this bright pink. They called it ginger, and I thought, I can't get away from it.
Oh. Yeah, well, like I said, I dyed it a couple of times myself, but the infamous golden blonde M&M look, and that was that actually increased the bullying rather than decreasing it. And then once I was in my 20s, it was a kind of more like a deep red, like a reddy purple kind of color. And I really suited it, but I looked like a real depressed emo. It was, it just looked, but there's a reason why none of those photos exist. You cannot find them anywhere. Because I just look at them, I'm like, nope, I just have to stick with what I've got. Delete. And yeah, so it was always very interesting times being a redhead. But do you still feel that kind of that shame of being a redhead? Because I'll admit, even though it's a great marketing tool now for everything that I'm doing, because I just stick ginger on something and people think, oh, that's really witty, that's really clever. Or you say something in a sentence and put the word ginger in it, you think it's hilarious, and they laugh like, "Oh, you're so funny." I'm like, "Aye, cheers." But I still feel really insecure. Still feel really insecure about my red hair. What, is that just me?
I totally get that. I mean, you see some of these memes that are on social media. You know, there's a big ginger boy, and then there's a skinny ginger boy, and it always seems to be really all these not so pleasant memes about redheads are about males, boys or men, and people think it's funny. And it's like, oh, there's a ginger walking down the street. Ha ha! Look at you ginger. And what? You know, we discussed this before. The minority, the 2%. You know, we're special. We are just so we're wonderful. We are.
Yep. And we're just great. But don't get me wrong, we can't go out in the sun that much. But it's lockdown times. It's overrated. Going outside's overrated now. Indoors is the new outdoors. That's how podcasting became so successful, and I finally found my niche.
Spray tans are wonderful. I love spray tans.
Oh, I can't spray tan. I just look like a giant carrot.
You're going to the wrong places, and you're having it too strong. You're having it too dark.
I couldn't do it. It was one of those ones. If I ever do Halloween, I'll just go to a spray tan place and just put some like green tint, and that's me sorted. Well, it's the easiest costume you could ever get. I don't think it would work. I'd basically have to go out almost naked, and I don't think I'd be okay with that. That would. Well, I think I'd end up having social services back at my door.
No.
Well, this just shows how comfortable I actually am around you, Susan. Half this stuff, like if my wife overheard the stuff I was talking about, where you should be like, Andrew, can you just shut up? Well, you are embarrassing yourself. You're embarrassing the nation. You're embarrassing gingers. What?
Not at all.
But she wouldn't be that eloquent. There'd be a lot of swearing in there as well. But no, you are an absolute delight to speak to, Susan. And what we gel really well together. Because of, like you said, the stuff we've been through, like kind of like different generations, but the points are all kind of there. And it's, as much as it's a good thing to connect with someone, it also makes me feel really, really heart sorry, because it just shows it's always going to be around. These prejudices about ginger hair. I remember I wrote a monologue about it. And I'd listed basically saying like, it's a form of racism. And because I would say that to people and they would go, "Shut up, you're a white male. How dare you say that?" And I'm like, no, it's a form of racism. Like you're verbally, physically, mentally, and emotionally abusing someone for something they can't control.
Yeah.
And I wrote like a huge monologue about it, like listing all the kind of stats about it, like how gingers are portrayed in the media, like all the instances, like the National Kick a Ginger Day that was going around for a while, and all this kind of stuff. And I was so tempted to put it on. There was like an open mic, and I was so tempted to do it, but I just I chickened out because I was like, I'm just going to get crucified here. But then I've got confidence back. Who knows? Might take it back, take it out.
Have you not now realised how these bullies from when we were kids, these bullies, how these so-called adults that bully us and they think it's funny to kick a ginger, to take the piss out of somebody that's got red hair and everything else, they are the ones that have given us, you and I and other gingers like us, the success that we have got today, because we have drawn on all that abuse and thought, do you know what, fuck you, I'm not going to let you beat me because you don't know me, you haven't even bothered to take an ounce of time to get to know me, and I'm going to draw on this and I'm going to put it out there, and you're not going to beat me. And look at us now. Look how successful you are in just these few months of starting your podcast. I mean, was it last week? Over 1,000 subscribers. What are you on now?
At the time of this recording, it will be 1,200.
Well, there you go. In just a few months. I wish I knew how many listeners I had to my show. I know I have a lot of followers.
You really
people
do.
Don't interact with me as much as I would like to think that they should. Perhaps maybe that's a wee ego thing. I don't know how many listeners I've got, but at the moment I care, but I don't care. I love doing my shows. I love having people like you on my shows to be able to share their life stories. And to all those bullies out there, to all those gingerists and everything else, do you know what? Fuck you. Honest to God, fuck you.
Too right.
Because we don't give a shit.
No, don't. Definitely don't.
Rant over.
No, it's fair enough. It took me a long time to kind of finally accept who I was. And that's the worst part. You don't feel like you belong to anything, to any type of place or anything. But you don't feel like you have a right to say it. Like, especially in my case, I had people going, "You're a white guy. You can basically get anything you want." And I was like, no, everybody has their struggles, no matter what it is. Mine is up here and in here. It all revolves around the head for me. Inside and outside the head, it's totally screwed up. But it's helped kind of push me on. The only time that I won't stand it is if it comes near my kids, because I've had people say, "Oh, your kids didn't wind up ginger, eh? Are you sure Alison wasn't going with anybody else at the time?" And I'm like, well, actually, the redhead gene, it comes from the female side of it, so it wouldn't have happened anyway. My niece is also blonde, my brother's also a redhead, and then I also follow up with a very kind, "Fuck you."
Yeah, totally.
Yep. And it just makes me so proud. I'm like, you know what? I've finally got that confidence where I can be like, come at me. Tell me the ginger joke that I've not heard, and I will give you a fiver. And no one to this day has done that. And I put that bet out when I was 16. I was like, come at me with any ginger joke you've got. None. That fiver will stay in my pocket until that day comes. Well, we're starting to come up on time. So we've overshot, obviously, but I just love talking to you, Susan. Well, it says on my clock that it's been 50 minutes, but the time just flies when you're having fun. And it's just been such a laugh with you. Like we've covered a lot. Yeah, we've covered so much as well. And I'm really, really appreciative of how much you shared with me about your story, and a lot of really personal things that most people wouldn't feel comfortable sharing. So I'm really honored that you felt comfortable enough to share that with me, especially with someone with genitals that you really should be taking a hacksaw to after what you've been through.
Yeah, I believe in karma.
Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully, the camera will definitely have come. Sometimes we just don't know it yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I will round off this section asking you the question I ask all my guests. If you could give one piece of advice to anybody that's struggling with mental health issues at this point in time, what would that piece of advice be, and why?
I would say talk, communicate, speak to somebody. Even if it's somebody that you don't know, there are so many websites with phone numbers out there that you can speak even anonymously. I know all too well how important it is to be able to offload, even if the other person can't actually do anything for you. I always say that we're all like pressure cookers. Every so often, it all builds up inside, and you just got to press that little button on the top of your head and just let it out, even a bit at a time. Talk to somebody. That's the first step. It's so important. And really, that the reason why is because I've been there, seen it, done it, bought and burnt the t-shirt. And I think communication in any relationship is more important than sex or anything else. If you don't have communication, you can't talk, you can't build up trust. And if you can't trust somebody, the sex is just going to be a fuck. It's not going to be lovemaking or anything like that. So communicate. If something is getting to you, then say so. Don't be embarrassed, because you're not weak. And especially for men as well. You know me, I put out a lot for men's mental health, because you're all brought up with, from when you're a boy, you fall over, you skint your knee, it hurts. But if as a boy, if you cry, you're told, you're being a wuss, man up, and this, that, and the other. No, cry. If something's getting to you, cry, but talk. Definitely talk.
Right.
That's Susan's piece of advice for the day.
Yep, and it's one we can all live by, definitely. But and I also love the description that you used for it. But it's like it's talking, but it's not, because it's not always about sex, but in a physical way. It could be anything. It could be the guys just, I'm just gonna go to the gym and work out instead of talking about feelings. Just lifting iron, pumping iron. What? Look how great my body looks, but inside I'm like, like a traumatized 6-year-old. And that's my reasoning for being fat as fuck. But yeah. Well, that's what we always say. I'm just a lazy cat. But it's definitely true. You just got to talk, and sometimes it's the hardest thing to do, but it's nothing that's worth having comes easy. And having a bit of positive mental health, you've just sometimes got to take that step. So we'll now come to Sunny Govan's favourite segment, Ask Andrew Anything. Now, for my regular listeners, this is where, after me grilling my guests for approximately 54 minutes and 9 seconds, this is where we turn the tables around and the guest gets to ask me a question. It could go very well. It could go very badly, but that is all part of the fun. So, Susan, do you have a question for this mental ginger?
Yeah, I like the way you just introduced this section as this is Sunny Govan's.
Yeah, I always like to try and make it relevant to the guest. Well, the magic may have been ruined, but it's what I do.
Oh, do I have a question for you?
I do feel bad for you. It's a bit harder because you had me on your radio show and did ask a lot of questions. So I do feel more sorry for you for this one, but it can be anything at all, so anything totally random. Just put me on the spot. I've got to answer it. So
Right. From being bullied as a kid because of your hair being the colour it is, and carpets and curtains matching, as we all know as genuine gingers.
Yeah.
Because of the bullying, did you shave your pubes?
Yes.
Do you still shave your pubes?
Nope, I'm too lazy. But that's I see a lot of what the podcasts that I've been on recently have been getting sponsors, one in particular for ones that are men's like grooming, south of the border. And hearing these guys talking about having to say like the sponsor bit for it, it's so hilarious because it's like we really don't want to say this and talk about our balls, but we have to because it's in the script. And it's fantastic. And I would be like, right, these sponsors come at me. I would be more than happy to talk about my balls and get away with it because it's a sponsor. I could be like, right, so I was really lazy and never used to shave down there, but thanks to these guys at insert name here. Well, look at this. See, now it looks like Mickey Mouse. Brilliant. It looks like a ginger Dumbo. It's fantastic. Yeah. I've seen an elephant fly. Well, I would just go all out with it and just really embrace it and enjoy it. Well,
totally.
I remember once I did shave down there for when me and Alison had first started dating, because sometimes you want to make it objects seem larger than they appear. That's why a lot of guys do it in front of the mirror. Well, and I just remember her looking, going, "What happened?" And I was like, I was bored. Well, I just saw the razor one day and thought, you know what? I've never actually. I was like, what do you think? She's like, don't do that again. Really noted.
But if you do, don't shave. Use the cream. Because when you shave, it's like when you're pruning a rose bush, you're just cutting it off, and as the hairs grow up, that's when you get really, really itchy. And I'm sure many of your viewers and listeners will actually know this. They're like that. So you use cream.
Oh yeah. The worst part was when I stupidly decided to put on
not your bum
aftershave.
Not your bum. Oh.
Yeah. Oh my God, I've never heated up so quickly in my entire life. Jesus, I've never experienced hell before, but that's pretty much what it's going to be like for me now. But no,
just don't put if you use the cream, don't put it around your bum.
No.
I accidentally did that once and left it on too long. No. That's a ring of fire.
Yeah, I actually did I'd had a joke where I was talking about how did a certain acting gig go, and I was like, aye, it was all right, but I did have a bit of ring rust. That's what I should actually call my anal hair. Well, they're like, dude, honestly. What? I have no filter. It's a blessing and a curse. Well, people tell me I should do stand up, and I'm like, nah, I don't think I would survive talking about this stuff. I would be cancelled quicker than probably every comedian out there now. But for everybody that is listening, please check out Susan Sutton, Sunny Govan Radio, or Talk Susan. It's on at this time of this recording. It's still every Tuesday, 1 till 3. Is that correct?
Yep.
At the time of this recording, so definitely check it out. She's had some amazing guests on. She had me. That sounds wrong, but you know what I mean. But it's she's absolutely fantastic. A brilliant person. And I could not recommend her highly enough. She may end up being my fellow ginger co-host if this goes any further. But I also have
I'm
to make
up
sure.
for that.
Yeah, well, definitely. Like you said, we've got good chemistry. Well, it seems to be getting better and stronger. So we got to embrace the gingerness. Yes, the ginger virus. Let's spread it to the world.
Yes.
It's something that only a certain few people can catch, but it's a privilege, not a curse.
Totally.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, Susan. Like, you've made my day. Like, at the time I was recording, a lot of fans know I've been really, really struggling with my mental health over the last few weeks. It's been really tough, and it's been a nightmare, really. I've not actually felt this bad in a while. And tonight has really put the smile back on my face. Thank you so much, Susan.
Job done.
From the bottom of my heart, I really mean it.
Thank you. Thank you.
So until next time, my faithful followers, I've been Andrew Durning. This has been the beautiful and talented Susan Sutton. Take care. Stay safe. Bye-bye.